Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday devotional time. I want to read to you from the second letter of Paul to the church at Corinthians, chapter 1, verse 8 through 11. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 8 through 11. Listen to what Paul says. We do not want you to be unaware, brothers and sisters, of the afflictions we experienced in Asia. For we were so utterly, unbearably crushed that we were despaired of life itself. In other words, so overwhelmed by life. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death, so that we would not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. He who rescued us from so deadly a peril will continue to rescue us. On him we have set our hope that he will rescue us again. As you also join in helping us by your prayers, so that many will give thanks on our behalf for the blessings granted us through the prayers of many. Now, what was Paul really talking about? He's saying that he was crushed and overwhelmed by life, and he found it difficult to endure pressures this great. You know, Paul was a mighty man. He was a mighty warrior. He was a Christian warrior. He was a man of God, maybe one of the mightiest individuals who belonged to God God ever created. I know Peter and some of the others were as well. But Paul was a godly man. And things had just gotten so out of hand that he thought he'd never live through it. And through these experiences, Paul realized that God was teaching him a valuable lesson. He needed to rely on God and not on himself. And as he realized his own weaknesses, he could learn how to depend on God. Paul realized that God can raise the dead, it says. In other words, he has that kind of power that has no limitations. He can do what seems impossible. If we trust him, he can rescue us, he can provide for us, and he can turn hopeless situations into victory. I want to read to you the message that was sent out by voicemail and email today to the church regarding my wife, Cindy. Cindy yesterday was admitted back into Westmoreland Hospital. She was ambulanced back to Westmoreland Hospital simply because of her low oxygen level. And upon arrival, she was tested for COVID, and therefore she tested positive for COVID. Cindy didn't have any symptoms. She didn't have a fever. She did have a cough, and the cough was from last week, and we were assured, I was assured over and over again that that cough had nothing to do with COVID because she had no signs of COVID. So with that being said, the only way we knew that there was a problem is that the nurse came in yesterday, tested her vital signs, and saw that her oxygen level was low. And then our family doctor, the nurse, called our family PCP, and she said, I think she needs to go to the hospital. And she thought there could have been a blood clot. And again, once there, no fever, no other issues, no loss of taste or anything like that. She was tested, and she had COVID. And the other issue that she has is that she has pneumonia on top of this. So far, Sarah and I are asymptomatic. In other words, we're not showing symptoms. Now, after having a conversation with Reverend Pat Nelson, our Greensburg District Superintendent, Barb Hilty, the church council chair, and Susan Sonafelt, the S.P.R.C. chair, and also I'm going to add Lisa Popovich. She's the school nurse over at Penn Trafford. I've decided to cancel the in-person sanctuary church service and drive-in service for the next 2 Sundays, and that's February 28th and then March 7th. The Sunday services for February 28th and March 7th will be virtual only. So in other words, like what I did and Lisa and Sarah did a couple of weeks ago when we had the ice storm, I put the service together at home and we broadcast it from home. We're going to do that again for the February 28th and March 7th. The Monday Bible study has been temporarily suspended as well. Both Sarah and I are quarantined for 10 days, and at the end of the quarantine, which I'm assuming, if I counted right, is March 6th, then I can start engaging again. But as extra precaution, I'm going to resume the Bible study on March 15th to give another week into the quarantine for all of us. And I would ask that you would all pray for the Raptosh family, for Cindy, Sarah, and myself, and for all that we're going through. Now, we started day quarantining, Sarah and I, today on day 1. And again, I think it's March 6th that our quarantine will be up, but we're going to extend that out a little bit. In a couple of days, Sarah and I are going to be tested for COVID. Even though we're not showing any symptoms, we're going to be tested for COVID. Even if the testing comes back negative, we're still going to quarantine for the rest of the 10 days. We just want to make sure everyone's safe. And again, the reason that I decided that the church should be shut down for a couple of reasons. It's just to lower the anxiety in the church that the pastor has been subjected to someone with COVID, and it's Cindy and Sarah as well. And we just want to make sure everyone's safe. And as Paul the Apostle says, this journey of this relentless barrage of issues that are happening with Cindy continue. And again, the only thing that I can think of, and I know, is that this got to glorify God. I just received a phone call about a half hour ago from the nurses station where Cindy's at in Westmoreland Hospital, and they were asking about doing a CAT scan on her lungs. And they needed permission from me because Cindy's allergic to dye with iodine in it. And so they're going to take protocol guidelines and make sure that she's safe when they implement that dye, because they need to do this. And what they're checking for is a blood clot in her lung. So I'm hopeful that there isn't a blood clot. Her oxygen level has gone down some. But they have her on oxygen, and they also have her right now on a CPAP machine. So pray for Cindy, pray for Sarah, pray for myself, and I continue to pray for all of you. Will you join me in prayer, please? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. And I'll see everyone tomorrow night. God bless you all.